The nature of all things is energy, from the thoughts that pass silently through the mind, to the people who appear and disappear from our lives, to the relationships that form, flourish, and eventually dissolve. Everything exists in a constant state of motion. Nothing remains fixed. What seems stable today may transform tomorrow. This is not a failure of consistency, but the very rhythm of existence. Like water that flows without asking permission, like the wind that travels across distances with no fixed destination. Energy too moves where it must, and when it no longer aligns with your path, it moves away. To understand this is to free oneself from the suffering born of resistance. When a person is removed from your life, your first response may be pain, confusion, or even betrayal. But behind the surface of that experience, something deeper is occurring. It is not chaos. It is not punishment. It is alignment. And alignment does not always feel gentle. Human connection is one of the most powerful exchanges of energy. We often form relationships, friendships, partnerships, even short encounters, not just based on physical presence, but energetic resonance. Two people meet and feel an invisible thread between them. That thread is not visible to the eye, but it is deeply felt by the soul. We say, I feel seen, or I feel understood, but what we are really saying is, this person matches my frequency in this moment. That frequency is not permanent. It can elevate, diminish, or transform over time. And when two frequencies move in different directions, the energetic bond begins to weaken. It does not mean one is better or worse. It means they are no longer vibrating in the same rhythm. Imagine a musical chord. When all the notes are in harmony, the sound is beautiful, rich, and balanced. But if even one note falls out of tune, the entire harmony feels off. Relationships are the same. When the harmony is lost, clinging to the sound only creates dissonance. And yet, many still hold on. Not to what the relationship is, but to what it was. They hold on to memories, to ideals, to promises. But energy does not honor memory. Energy honors movement. It respects flow, not attachment. And when energy shifts, the universe acts to restore balance. That restoration often takes the form of endings. You may think someone was taken from you, but in truth they were released. Released from a connection that no longer served your higher path, and perhaps no longer served theirs. In this way, what feels like a loss is, in essence, a correction. It is not personal. It is universal. Energy cannot remain where it is no longer supported. Just as a plant cannot grow without sunlight, just as fire cannot burn without oxygen, relationships cannot survive without aligned energy. People change. You change. The circumstances that once bonded two people may no longer exist. And if your spirit begins to shift toward growth, peace, or truth, anyone or anything not aligned with that new direction will naturally begin to drift away. This is not cruelty. This is nature. And nature always seeks alignment. Yet most suffering comes from the unwillingness to let go of what is already gone. We try to force old energies into new spaces. We try to revive what has already released itself. But this force is not love. It is fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being forgotten. These fears are loud. But if you become still enough, beneath those fears is something wiser. The knowing that you are not being abandoned, but realigned. It takes deep awareness to see the wisdom in endings. It takes courage to accept that some people were only meant to walk with you for a season, not a lifetime. Not every connection is meant to last forever, because not every connection can grow where your soul is going. And when the energy begins to shift, the universe starts whispering. First gently, through silence, discomfort, emotional distance, then louder, through conflict, misalignment, disconnection. And finally, the removal, not as punishment, but as protection. You are being protected from misaligned energy, protected from distortion, protected from stagnation. And so the people who leave your life, whether through separation, betrayal, distance, or silence, do not need to be chased. Let them go. They are not enemies. They are not villains. They are energy that no longer matches the vibration of where you are now being led. And their exit is not a void. It is a clearing that will make space for something more aligned, more authentic, more in harmony with your current truth. But to make peace with this process, one must learn to feel energy instead of forcing connection. Pay attention to what expands you and what depletes you. Notice who leaves you with a sense of stillness and who leaves you restless. Watch how your spirit responds to certain people, even in silence. The body never lies. The spirit never lies. Energy never lies. What feels off is off. And trying to fix what your soul has already outgrown is like trying to shrink yourself back into a version that no longer exists. In this way, the removal of people is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of cleansing, a sacred rebalancing, because the people who are meant for your highest path will not require force. Their energy will match your own. Their presence will feel like harmony. They will not drain you, confuse you, or cause you to question your worth. They will feel like clarity, and until those people arrive, the space left behind by others is not a wound. It is preparation. It is alignment in motion. Pain has a language, not the kind that speaks through words, but one that whispers through silence, echoes through solitude, and echoes through the empty spaces left behind by the things and people we thought would stay. When pain visits us, it seldom arrives gently. It breaks routines, interrupts comfort, and demands that we feel, fully and without distraction. Most people, in their instinct to survive, begin by resisting it. They call it unfair. They treat it like a punishment. They try to numb it, outrun it, distract themselves from it. But what they fail to see is that pain is never without purpose. Pain is not a cruel teacher. It is not evidence that you have done something wrong. It is not a verdict passed down by life for your past decisions. Pain, at its essence, is not punishment. It is redirection. To experience pain is not to be cursed, but to be called to something deeper, quieter, more aligned with the path you are meant to walk. Pain often arrives when we are holding on to something that no longer serves us. It shows up when we cling to relationships we have outgrown, when we settle for less than our worth, when we ignore the signs that something needs to change. And so pain enters not to destroy, but to illuminate. It highlights the fracture. It draws your attention to the place that requires awareness, courage, or healing. But in the moment of pain, it is difficult to see the wisdom. The heart doesn't want redirection. It wants relief. The mind doesn't seek understanding. It seeks certainty. And yet, the very nature of pain is to disrupt that certainty. It creates cracks in the foundation you thought was solid, exposing the areas you built on fear, illusion, or denial. The pain does not lie. It doesn't ask for your permission. It simply points to what must be seen. And only when it has been fully felt does it begin to release its grip. The mistake many make is assuming that if something hurts, it must be bad. But not all things that hurt are harmful. A seed must break before it sprouts. Muscles must tear slightly to grow stronger. A fever must rise before it passes. Likewise, spiritual and emotional pain is not the mark of punishment. It is the evidence that something within is changing form. A version of you is shedding. An old identity, an outdated belief, a connection that no longer fits. All are being peeled away to make room for something more aligned. And the peeling hurts. The process is rarely graceful, but it is necessary. In the human experience, pain often precedes transformation. It strips away the superficial layers and confronts you with what is real. When a person leaves your life, when a door closes, when failure strikes, it may feel like rejection, abandonment, or loss. But beneath that surface is a message. The pain is showing you the misalignment. It is pointing out that the path you were walking was not the one designed for your highest self. It is redirecting you toward truth, toward awareness, toward deeper integrity with who you really are. But redirection doesn't always come with clarity. In fact, it rarely does. More often, it comes cloaked in confusion. One chapter ends, and the next doesn't immediately begin. You are left in the in-between, the space where what was is gone, but what will be has not yet arrived. This space is uncomfortable. It feels like a void, but that void is sacred. It is the space where seeds are planted, the soil of stillness where clarity eventually grows. And if you resist it, if you rush it, you miss the lesson that pain came to teach. Pain humbles you. It softens what was rigid. It quiets what was noisy. It dismantles the illusions you built for safety so that something more truthful can be constructed in its place. Without pain, many would stay in places that diminish them. They would tolerate situations that slowly drain their spirit. They would remain loyal to comfort instead of committed to growth. But pain does not allow comfort to persist when growth is calling. It moves in, clears out, and removes what must go, not because you are being punished, but because you are being prepared. And sometimes redirection comes in ways that appear harsh. A sudden betrayal, a job loss, a closed opportunity. But if you reflect deeply, you may realize that what was removed was never truly stable. The pain simply made it visible. It pulled away the mask so you could see what you were avoiding. It opened your eyes to what you tried not to acknowledge. In this way, pain becomes the force that steers you inward. It calls you home to yourself. It asks, where are you not living in truth? What are you still attached to that is costing you your peace? Who have you been pretending to be to avoid being alone? These are not easy questions. And pain does not always bring immediate answers, but it brings movement. It stirs the still waters. It prevents stagnation. And it ensures that you do not sleep through your life. Because there are moments when you would not leave unless it hurt. You would not grow unless you were forced to. You would not change unless you were shaken. So the pain comes, not to harm, but to help. And its help often looks like disruption. To navigate pain mindfully is to accept that discomfort can exist alongside wisdom. That even in heartbreak, you can grow. That even in loss, there can be expansion. That even in moments of darkness, the direction is not backwards, it is inward. The soul is being redirected to its origin, not the image you present to the world, but the essence you carry within. In a world obsessed with speed, urgency is mistaken for importance. Movement is glorified. Noise is celebrated. The louder something is, the more attention it receives. The faster something happens, the more successful it appears. People are taught to rush, to reach, to chase, to constantly occupy the space around them with some form of action. But there is a hidden cost to this ceaseless motion. It is the loss of inner stillness, and without stillness, clarity cannot arise. Stillness is not laziness. It is not inactivity. It is not the absence of effort. Stillness is presence. It is full awareness with no immediate reaction. It is the condition in which true insight becomes possible. Just as muddy water must settle before it becomes clear, the mind too must slow down before it can perceive truth. When you are moving constantly, reacting to every impulse, opinion, distraction, and demand, your inner space becomes clouded. And when the space is clouded, you cannot see. Clarity is not something you acquire. It is not outside of you. It is already within you, but it is often buried under layers of noise. The noise of overthinking, of emotional clutter, of external opinions, of mental fatigue. When you slow down and observe without reacting, when you sit without needing to fix or change anything immediately, clarity begins to emerge on its own. Like a reflection on calm water, it does not need to be created. It only needs to be allowed. Many people search for answers, yet avoid silence. They seek guidance, yet resist solitude. But clarity cannot be forced. It arrives when you stop grasping. It reveals itself when you become still enough to listen, not just with your ears, but with your entire presence. To listen without rushing to label, without needing to conclude, without running away from discomfort. This is the beginning of inner clarity. Stillness is uncomfortable for the mind that is addicted to distraction. When you first sit in silence, you will notice how busy the mind truly is. Thoughts arise. Emotions surface. Memories play like scenes from a story you thought you had finished reading. The silence will feel loud. The stillness will feel heavy. But stay with it. Let the mind tire itself out. Let the emotions rise like waves and do not chase them. Watch, observe, remain grounded. The more you stay, the more the storm begins to pass. And what is left behind is not emptiness but clarity. In the stillness, you begin to see patterns. You notice the root of your reactions. You realize which attachments cause suffering. You start to see where you are living in fear rather than in alignment. This cannot be learned through constant motion. It cannot be revealed through endless distraction. It can only unfold in stillness, because stillness holds up the mirror. Stillness is where the ego loses its grip. It is where the inner voice becomes louder than the outer world. It is where truth becomes unavoidable. Many avoid stillness not because they dislike it, but because they are afraid of what they might find there. The truth of who they've become. The truth of what they're clinging to. The truth of what they need to let go of. But the cost of avoiding this truth is confusion. And confusion, when prolonged, turns into suffering. True clarity does not always come in words. It is not always a sentence you can write down or a plan you can explain. Sometimes clarity is a feeling, a quiet knowing, a shift in energy, a sense of release. It arrives in stillness like the sun rising slowly behind a mountain. It does not shout. It does not demand. It simply reveals. And when it does, there is no more debating, no more second guessing. You just know. But to reach that knowing, you must be willing to be still long enough. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. This requires discipline. It requires awareness. It requires courage. Because to sit in stillness is to face yourself, not the version you show others, but the one that exists when no one is watching. And in that raw space, clarity is not filtered through the ego. It is not shaped by your preferences. It is pure. It may not always say what you want to hear, but it will always tell you what you need to know. There is a stillness beneath all the noise. A quiet, unshaken core that exists within every person. You do not need to create it, you only need to return to it. And each time you touch that stillness, even briefly, you begin to remember what clarity feels like. It is not frantic, it is not desperate, it is not confused, it is calm, it is steady, it does not rush because it trusts, it does not force because it knows. When faced with uncertainty, the instinct is often to act, to fix, to do something, to move in any direction just to escape the discomfort of not knowing. But not every moment requires movement. Sometimes the most powerful response is stillness, not inactivity but intentional pause, a sacred retreat into presence where the need to know is replaced by the willingness to wait. And in that waiting, clarity begins to rise like mist from still water. To cultivate stillness is to reclaim your power. Because when you are no longer pulled by every thought, when you no longer react to every emotion, when you no longer seek answers from sources outside yourself, you begin to remember that the wisdom you are looking for is already inside you. But it speaks in whispers, not in noise. And it can only be heard in stillness. There is a presence that moves around your life quietly without drawing attention. It does not announce itself, does not require recognition, and does not seek approval. It is not seen by the eyes, but felt by the soul, not through explanation, but through resonance. It is the force that closes doors you were eager to walk through. It is the delay that frustrates you but later makes sense. It is the silence that replaces someone's voice, the detour that rewrites your steps, the unexpected ending that you didn't ask for but later understand. This presence, this intelligence, is not punishing you. It is protecting you from the unseen. To be protected from what is unseen is to be spared from outcomes you cannot anticipate. Often, the mind creates a fixed image of what it wants. A person, a job, a path, a timeline. And when life does not deliver according to that image, disappointment sets in. But what if what you wanted was not what you needed? What if the very thing you were praying for was a source of hidden harm? What if the delay was divine? What if the silence was sacred? What if the ending was the beginning of protection? The human mind is limited. It sees what is in front of it. It calculates based on past experiences and visible patterns. But life does not move only by logic. It flows through layers: physical, emotional, energetic, spiritual. There are currents underneath the surface of things, and many of them are invisible to you. You may not see someone's true intentions. You may not understand the full consequences of a decision. You may not perceive how one small shift today could ripple into something far greater years from now. And so the unseen must sometimes act on your behalf. Not with your permission, but with your protection in mind. To be protected from the unseen often feels like loss. It feels like rejection, disappointment, confusion. It feels like the unanswered prayer, the missed opportunity, the sudden separation. But this is only because your vision is momentary and protection is long-term. It looks ahead where you cannot. It sees the thread that connects your present to a future you cannot yet imagine. And in doing so, it removes what does not belong, even if you believe it does. There are people you loved who were never meant to stay. There are opportunities you pursued that were never meant to open. There are paths you insisted on walking that were never meant to carry your weight. And yet, at the time, these seemed right. They seemed aligned. They seemed destined. But something intervened. Something shifted. Something fell apart. Not because you were unworthy, not because you failed, but because something in that connection or in that situation was not meant to go where your soul was going. It was not strong enough, not pure enough, not real enough. The unseen is not always dramatic. Often it is subtle, a feeling you can't explain, a recurring discomfort around someone's presence, a door that simply doesn't open no matter how much you try. These are not mistakes. They are instructions. Instructions delivered in silence. And yet, most people miss them because they are too focused on force. They try to hold on. They try to control. They try to make something work that is quietly being taken away. But protection does not negotiate. When it moves with certainty. Sometimes you are being protected from something as simple as stagnation, from the version of yourself that was too small for the life that is waiting. You are protected from habits that drain you, from relationships that distract you, from choices that would lead you further from your truth. And this protection does not always feel like a gift. In fact, it may feel like a wound, because the ego believes that losing is failure. But the soul knows that losing what is false is the beginning of freedom. And yet the mind resists. It seeks reasons. It wants to understand why. Why did this happen? Why did they leave? Why didn't it work? But protection doesn't always come with an explanation. Sometimes the answer comes much later, months, even years, when you look back and realize that what felt like destruction was actually direction, that what was removed was making space for what was real, that the silence was not empty, but full of unseen hands rearranging your life in ways you never could. To trust in the unseen is to relinquish the need to always understand. It is to accept that not everything will make sense in the moment. That clarity often comes after surrender, not before, and that the most important movements in your life may be the ones you don't control at all. In this way, protection often disguises itself as pain. The discomfort is not the presence of something wrong, but the absence of what no longer belongs. It hurts because you were attached. It hurts because you had expectations. It hurts because the mind believed it knew best. But pain is not proof that you are unworthy. It is evidence that something deeper is being reshaped. Beyond your preferences, beyond your plans, beyond your perception. There are battles you didn't have to fight, situations you didn't have to recover from, lessons you didn't have to learn the hard way. Not because you were clever or cautious, but because something unseen intervened. It moved you out of the way. It placed distance where closeness would have caused harm. It brought endings where continuation would have led to collapse. And though you couldn't see it at the time, what felt like a fall was a shield. What felt like abandonment was a rescue. What felt like delay was a form of grace wrapped in silence. In a world ruled by clocks, deadlines, and urgency, time is measured in numbers. Days, weeks, years. Success is often judged by speed. The sooner it happens, the better. The faster the growth, the more impressive the progress. This is the language of the external world, where comparison fuels pressure and waiting is viewed as weakness. But life itself does not move by these human rules. The soul is not aligned with the calendar. The heart is not structured by timelines. What is meant for you does not operate on demand. It operates on alignment, and this alignment is governed not by impatience or force, but by divine timing. A rhythm that neither rushes nor delays. Divine timing is not interested in how much you want something, or how quickly you are willing to act. It does not bow to desperation. It is not manipulated by your plans. It does not adjust itself to match your expectations. Divine timing works with the full scope of your path, not just where you are today, but where you are going, who you are becoming, and what must unfold in the unseen before certain doors are opened. You may want something now. You may believe you are ready. You may feel certain that it's time, but wanting is not the same as readiness. Feeling ready is not the same as being aligned. When something does not arrive on your timeline, it is not because life is punishing you. It is not because you are being overlooked. It is not because you are not deserving. Delay is not denial. It is preparation. When something is withheld, it is because what needs to meet you, whether a relationship, opportunity, or transformation, must first reach its own readiness as well. You are not the only part of the equation. Divine timing coordinates the readiness of all pieces. People, places, circumstances, before allowing certain chapters to begin. You may be asking for something that still exists in chaos. You may be reaching for something that, if given to you now, would collapse under the pressure of premature arrival. Not because it's wrong, but because it's not whole yet. And divine timing never delivers partial gifts. It never brings something into your life just to take it away. What it brings in completion. When it opens a door, it means that both you and what is behind it are ready to meet in alignment. But waiting is difficult for the mind that has been conditioned to strive. The mind seeks results, movement, validation. The mind fears stillness because it equates it with stagnation. But divine timing is not stagnant. It is active, just not in ways that are visible. While you are waiting, things are moving. While you are growing, so is what is meant for you. While you are healing, the path is clearing itself. In the silence, in the delay, in the quiet space between desire and fulfillment, something sacred is at work. To trust divine timing is to surrender control. It is to let go of the belief that things must happen when you say so. It is to accept that your soul has a schedule, and that schedule cannot be rushed. This trust does not mean passivity. It does not mean you sit and do nothing. It means you move with awareness. You prepare without panic. You work without force. You act with patience. You continue walking your path with the understanding that what is meant for you is already on its way and will arrive at the exact moment it is supposed to. And there will be moments when this timing tests you, when you see others receive what you are still praying for, when you feel close to something only for it to slip away, when the door opens briefly and then closes again. These are not failures. These are realignments. They are reminders that divine timing is not about glimpses, but about full arrivals. You are not meant to receive what you cannot yet carry. You are not meant to walk through doors that do not yet lead to stability. The universe does not give only to take away, but it will delay what is not yet rooted. Not out of cruelty, but out of compassion. Divine timing does not rush because it knows there is no need. What is meant for you cannot be missed. It is already in motion. The moment you aligned with its energy, it began moving toward you. And divine timing does not delay because it is forgetful. It does not wait out of indifference. It waits for completion. There are lessons you must first embody, clarity you must first gain, strength you must first develop. Divine timing holds the arrival until the soil of your life is ready to support the roots of what is coming. And sometimes the delay is not about you at all. It is about the people you are meant to meet, the circumstances that must evolve, the exact combination of events that must align for the next chapter to unfold properly. What seems like stillness is often divine coordination. Behind the scenes, a vast intelligence is weaving your path with threads you cannot yet see. And when all is ready, truly ready, it will unfold without resistance. Not because you forced it, but because you were finally in rhythm with what was always meant to be. This rhythm is not based on the urgency of the world. It does not mirror the ticking of the clock or the pacing of those around you. It is based on wholeness, on balance, on truth. Divine timing does not move faster just because you are tired of waiting. It does not arrive early to soothe your impatience, but neither does it delay without reason. It moves according to what will serve your highest evolution, and it brings into your life not what you chase, but what you are prepared to hold. Suffering is not welcome. It does not enter your life with soft footsteps or gentle hands. It arrives like a storm, sudden, loud, sometimes devastating. It comes in forms you do not choose: a loss, heartbreak, betrayal, failure, emptiness, confusion. It disrupts the story you've been telling yourself, interrupts the life you thought you understood, and exposes you to a depth of vulnerability that few are prepared to meet. And yet, within this breaking, there is something sacred unfolding. There is something far beyond the pain, because suffering, although sharp and difficult, is not the end. It is the gate, the threshold through which deeper awareness can begin to arise. Human beings are drawn to comfort. It is in our nature to seek safety, consistency, familiarity. We are creatures of habit, of routine, of predictable patterns. But comfort can also become a cage, a quiet numbing, a life lived within walls built by fear. In comfort, many truths remain hidden. In comfort, most people sleep. They function, they repeat, they survive, but they do not necessarily awaken. Awareness requires something more disruptive, something that shakes the soul out of its slumber. And suffering, for all its difficulty, performs this sacred disruption. When suffering touches your life, it does not merely create pain, it creates space. The kind of space that cannot be accessed through pleasure or success. The kind of space that opens only when all distractions are stripped away, when the ego is too tired to pretend, when the noise of the outer world becomes unbearable, and you are forced to sit with what lives within you. In this stillness, in this raw and quiet place, something else begins to stir. Awareness. Awareness of how you have lived. Awareness of what you have avoided. Awareness of the masks you've worn, the lies you've believed, the truths you've buried. Suffering makes you see. It pierces through illusion. It forces you to question everything. Your relationships, your choices, your beliefs, even your identity. The things you once thought were certain begin to unravel. And as they unravel, they reveal what was hidden beneath. This process is rarely pleasant. It feels like loss, like breaking, like being pulled apart from the inside. But it is necessary, because without being broken, many would never stop and ask why they are living the way they are. They would continue walking paths that lead nowhere. They would remain stuck in cycles that slowly drain their life force. Suffering interrupts this unconscious repetition. It holds the momentum of illusion. And yet, suffering alone is not transformation. It is the gate, not the destination. Many people suffer but remain trapped in their suffering. What transforms suffering into awareness is presence. It is the willingness to feel what arises instead of escaping it. It is the courage to witness your pain, to listen to it, to move through it, not as a victim, but as a student. Because suffering contains information, it speaks the language of the soul. But you must be quiet enough, still enough, humble enough to hear what it is trying to say. Awareness born through suffering is not intellectual. It is not something you can read or memorize. It is embodied. It is felt. It comes from the direct experience of moving through darkness and coming out changed. It is the kind of wisdom that cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed. It is earned, not through avoidance, but through inner confrontation. And once it is earned, it cannot be taken from you. You begin to see how much of your previous life was built on distraction. How much of your happiness depended on things outside yourself. How much of your peace was conditional. You see how you ignored the whispers of intuition until life had to shout. You see how you clung to relationships out of fear, how you numbed yourself with noise, how you postponed your own truth. These realizations do not come when everything is going well. They come when something breaks, when something hurts, when you are no longer able to pretend that everything is fine. Suffering is the sacred collapse that makes space for something real. It is the undoing of everything false. It does not give you what you want. It gives you what you need to wake up. It does not cater to your comfort. It invites your evolution. And through this invitation, awareness expands. You begin to perceive with new eyes. You begin to feel more deeply. You begin to relate to life not just from the surface of appearances, but from the depth of presence. What once triggered you begins to teach you. What once confused you begins to clarify. What once broke you begins to open you. You become less reactive, more observant. You begin to notice the patterns of your mind. You begin to catch the moments when fear tries to take over, when ego tries to defend, when judgment tries to distract. You no longer believe every thought. You no longer cling to every emotion. You learn to sit with discomfort without needing to escape it. This is awareness, not as a concept, but as a state of being. And once this awareness is activated, your relationship with suffering also changes. You no longer see it as punishment. You no longer view it as a problem to be fixed. You begin to honor it as a necessary companion on the path of awakening. Not something you invite, but something you respect. Because you have seen what it opens. You have felt what it teaches. You have walked through its fire and found not only pain, but depth. And in that depth, you discovered something that was never visible before. The part of you that does not run, does not blame, does not break. This part of you does not need everything to be perfect. It does not need every question answered. It simply watches, it accepts, it understands. And it continues forward, not because suffering has ended, but because awareness has begun